Dorian, so you have this film called Everyday Saturday, and so what was, it's playing Northside?
Playing Northside.
What's the date?
June 20th, 4:45, Nighthawk Cinema. Check it out.
And what was the initial spark of the film? How did you kind of come up with the idea? And
it was something that had been brewing in my mind for quite a while. I was sort of on the verge of graduating from college. My mom had just retired, and I sort of saw this parallel between our situations, in that we both had to sort of come up with what the next steps in our lives would be. Obviously, my mom had already lived one life and was now figuring out what her new one would be, and she was sort of dealing with a bit of professional regret, dealing with the loss of my father, and how that would affect her plans in terms of how she'd always envisioned her retirement. And then, you know, by comparison and contrast, I was sort of finishing school and very much in a similar transition, but just figuring out what my life would be. Mm-hmm. And so I wanted to compare and contrast that. And then, you know, my mom sort of passed away from ovarian complications with ovarian cancer in late 2010, which resulted in my inheritance of the house I grew up in. It was going to have to be sold because I couldn't afford to keep it, and so I got this. I had this sort of compulsion to see this story through and document my house and consider my mom's life and the difficulties that she faced.
Mm-hmm. Did she know about the project before she passed away?
She knew vaguely. I had called her sort of maybe a few weeks before graduating, mm-hmm. and I said, hey, I have this idea. I actually wanted her to be in it. I wanted to like make this short film about my mom and her sort of routines and how she filled her time now that she had been recently retired. And because it's weird, it's like you don't have to clock in every day, and you don't have your son at home to take care of anymore, and your husband has passed away, and what fills those hours? Those were questions that were really interesting to me. Mm-hmm. And so she knew vaguely I had something in mind about her, and she was interested in doing it, and then it just never quite, I worked on it in my head and it just never quite came to be. And you know, there was a real motivation to do it. I felt a responsibility to do it. Mm-hmm. When she passed away.
And how did the actors get involved? How did you find the lead mother and son?
It was an interesting, difficult, arduous process that at times made me want to hide and never see the sun again. You know, I wrote this script really very, very quickly. In January of 2011, had just finished this web series, so that sort of finished up, and I quit my job and wrote this script between February and when we shot. I mean, I was like still writing it basically, which was in July of 2011. And we found our actors really not too long before it was like getting down to the wire where we thought we might not make the movie. And they were recommended to us by one of the producers of the film and actors in the film, Maya Kazan, who plays Hannah, and Tasso, who plays Asher, the son, was living out in LA, and he sent us a video, and he was just the guy. Like, we watched it and we were like, you're the one. And Deborah Hedwall, who plays the mother character Evelyn, was recommended to us. I sent her the script sort of with fingers crossed, and she called me one day and said she'd love to do it, which was incredibly flattering. and then the madness began.
Can you talk about the kind of the process of like putting the film together and just shooting it, like and having a limited budget and shooting it, in your own house and kind of with the very limited resources you had to make a feature film?
In some ways, shooting in my own house was like the greatest benefit we had. There was no like, I knew everything intimately, and that said, it was also like super weird. I mean, it was like I was sleeping there, like next to all this gear, like the camera essentially staring me down while I slept, and sort of getting up in the morning and all these people would be coming in and fresh bagels would be getting put out with an array of cream cheeses, and it was just sort of so not my house while we were shooting in it. It was very much a set, and in some way that like helped me dissociate. It helped me say goodbye to the house and helped me feel, a certain peace and catharsis about losing it. So yeah, it was very bizarre to shoot in the house I'd lived in for like 15 years or something as a child, and then this movie, which is also very personal but fictional. Seeing things that I had written that were based on very real circumstances in my life. It was very, very meta, and it was a strange thing to be a part of and witness and be the catalyst of,
What did your other family members think of you shooting in the house and kind of?
Yeah, it was interesting for them because on one hand they were very pleased to have this document and very pleased to have me make such a personal expression, but it also very much complicated the sale of the house because there were, a stretch of weeks where the realtor couldn't show this place. I mean, this house was on the market, beginning pretty much on the day that I started writing, and it sold a few weeks after we finished shooting. So, it was definitely a thorn in their side in some ways. And then, having viewed the film, I think my family members have an incredibly complicated relationship to it because it is so personal for them, and it is very much a symbol of their loss as well. So, I think it's a very difficult film for my family and my family friends to watch.
What does it mean to to premiere in Brooklyn? Kind of where you made it, a lot of the crew is based. And
I'm excited that human eyes are going to see it at all, like anywhere at any time. It's such a tiny movie, it's such a personal movie, and the fact that anyone anywhere has any interest in it is really flattering. And premiering it in Brooklyn is, the most exciting because it's very much a Brooklyn movie. We got favors from very, people in the neighborhood. It's very local. And, all our friends can come support us and new friends can come see it. And it's a great community here in Brooklyn of independent thinkers and film artists.
Are you working on anything new or kind of writing or?
I definitely have some ideas percolating. It's been, my mind is still so much involved in getting this film out into the world that thinking of the next big thing has been sort of a tremendous weight. And there have been like little projects along the way that are helping me figure out what the next thing is exactly. But there will be something.